It is currently 2:30 a.m. and as you can tell by my appearance, I look like shit, I feel like shit. I'm just finishing work up for the day now. I have been burnt out for weeks at this point, but there's just so much to do that I've convinced myself that I cannot stop working, which is so stupid. I probably should have just taken 3 days off. There's a lot of days, at least once a day, I question whether or not I'm cut out to do this. A lot of people think that when you're your own boss and you have your own business, that all of your work struggles or problems surrounding work go away. But I actually think that your problems are probably magnified 10x, if not more. It's like the most common thing you hear is people complaining about their boss. Like, oh, I hate my boss. My boss is such an asshole. My boss doesn't let me do X, Y, Z. But just imagine you were your own boss, right? Which is a flawed statement to begin with. I won't get into why. But let's just imagine for a second you are your own boss and you bring your boss with you everywhere. I don't think there's a minute that ever goes by when I'm not thinking about work. And as much as I like that, I also really hate it. Because even when I'm supposed to be decompressing, taking a break, and not thinking about work, it's almost impossible. The reason that there is so much money to be made as an entrepreneur is not because having your own company just means you make a lot of money. There's plenty of people with companies that aren't worth a lot or aren't profitable or fail or, they owe investors millions of dollars. The reason that you make a lot of money as an entrepreneur, or the potential to make a lot of money is because there is so much accountability riding on you. And when you are the one who's accountable for everything that goes wrong or right in your business, there's a disproportionate amount of risk you take on. And the reward you hope as an entrepreneur is that there is a disproportionate amount of reward to come with that disproportionate amount of risk. But for most people, and even for me, I've had plenty of failures over the course of my four-year career now as an entrepreneur. The first year and a half, I made zero money, literally no money for my businesses. I was burning investor money, almost had to shut the business down, and it was working equal amounts as I do now, if not more, because when the business isn't making any money, you're more incentivized and there's a fire under your ass to keep going and to make it work. But that's a story for another time. I just set a new video to upload tomorrow. I worked probably a solid 15 hours on this video, and I'm not even the one who edited it. Just thinking about it, scripting it, filming it, going over the edit with my editor, taking the thumbnail, editing the thumbnail, uploading it. I have my editor makes my thumbnails now for my personal channel, and he uploads the videos for me, but I just really want this video to work and do well because I put so much time into it, and I think it's really that valuable. It would be a shame if it didn't get the visibility that I think it's due. So I even went as far as making the thumbnail myself, because I really want everything to be perfect, and I'm not even 100% satisfied with the thumbnail, but at this point, it is what it is. But yeah, you work tirelessly, you do everything, and there's never a guarantee that what you're doing will pay off or be worth anything. In fact, I'd say most of the time, there's a higher chance that it won't work than it will. But you just gotta keep putting one foot in front of the other and hoping that eventually it will pay off. And these past 4 months almost have been the most I've worked in, I don't even know how long. Probably since before my businesses were successful, and I'm incredibly burnt out. I don't even know, I'm so obsessed with work right now that I felt it was important to document this just because I felt my thoughts and my feelings right now were super, super important to think about. A lot of people glamorize and only expose the flashy sides of entrepreneurship or running your own business, but I'd say it is probably more pain than pleasure most of the time. But when you do get the pleasure, it's a disproportionate amount of pleasure. Yeah, I think there's something about the input and the output ratio as an entrepreneur that excites me. This video I just uploaded is a video that could do really, really well. And it only took me 15 hours to make. 15 hours is super long for a video, considering I didn't edit it, but it only took me 15 hours to do. And yet this video could go on to get hundreds of thousands of views or millions of views. I don't think it's quite millions of views worthy, for being totally honest. But this video could go on to do really well. It could bring me plenty of subscribers, or, you know, I could have spent 15 hours and I'll get 2,000 views on it and nothing will come from this video, right? So the fact that the amount of time I input, let's say 15 hours, doesn't directly correlate to the output, it could either equal 0 and never do anything for me or my business, or it can produce massive results for my business. It could go on to be my most popular video. I think that's the exciting thing about entrepreneurship. I think that's what makes the grind that goes along with it worth it. And I think it's important to focus on doing things that are high leverage and potentially high ROI. So doing things like this where your inputs aren't directly correlated to your outputs. It's not I show up and do one video and I get paid X amount for it, or it results in me getting, you know, the cap is 10 subscribers, right? Let's just say. The fact is this video can go on and do, you know, an infinite amount of output for my business. I think the fact that your inputs don't always match your outputs is incredibly important. I was listening to a podcast. Wow, I look fucking terrible. I was listening to a podcast with Naval Ravikant, and he was talking about this idea of inputs versus outputs and making sure that your inputs and outputs aren't directly correlated in the sense that they're not limited. And the example he used was the person who invented Bitcoin. He wrote one line of code or X amount of lines of code that went on to be worth billions of dollars. And potentially Bitcoin could go on to be worth way more than that. But even right now it's worth billions of dollars. But there's also, you know, people writing code at companies that will never be used and will never be worth anything, right? So that's sort of the risk you take on as an entrepreneur, and you have to be comfortable with. You have to be willing to live with. I'm just grateful that I've been fortunate enough to see success super, super early in my career. And I don't attribute that to me being so smart and savvy and such a good entrepreneur, because honestly, there's been a lot of luck on my side. I do think luck plays a huge factor in this game, a lot more than people would like to admit. But regardless of luck, you can't account for luck and you can't count on luck. The best you can do is just do your best, put one foot in front of the other, and really just keep going. And eventually, at some point in the future, you'll reach some semblance of something that makes sense and makes it worthwhile. At least I hope so. That's what I try to tell myself. I think that's why it's important to work on things that you would work on regardless of money. When I was in college, I felt like a lot of the smart kids were wasting their potential on pursuing stuff like finance or investment banking just because they were super money motivated. And even at one point, you know, there was a few months where I considered like, hey, maybe I should go into an investment banking, make 120K or 150K starting salary. That'd be amazing. But you'd also have to work 120 hours a week or something insane like that. Terrible. I remember being at one of these investment banking meetings where like Citibank and all the other big banks come in, and they come and like talk to you and meet the students, and this is how you're supposed to make a connection so you can try and get an interview and get an internship and then a job. And I remember I was at this investment banking meeting, and I put on a fucking suit. I go in there, everyone's wearing suits, and I look around, and like 20 minutes into this, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? There is no amount of money you could pay me to be in a room full of these people working on spreadsheets all day. And that's not a knock on investment banking. It takes incredible skill and smarts to do that. There's a lot of sharp, bright people doing it, but from my limited experience and what I saw the people pursuing it and why they were pursuing it for the wrong reasons, or what I consider to be the wrong reasons. They're pursuing it for purely financial gain or for prestige or status seeking. And I think it's really easy to motivate yourself to keep working, when it's fucking 2:45 a.m. and you're talking to a fucking iPhone. It's really easy to keep working towards your goals and stay motivated and be willing to go through and weather the storm, because 90% of the time, if not 95% of the time, you are really just working at a computer or trying to solve problems that you hope will make a lasting impact on the business. It's really easy to stay focused and stay motivated when what you're working on you feel is something that's truly important and it gives you a direction and a purpose. So I've just been lucky that so far I've had a relatively easy time going through all of this struggle, because I do think the things I'm working on are worthwhile and they give me a sense of direction and something to move towards, as opposed to just the monetary gain or the status that comes with it. Because when you're alone in your house, alone in your room, all the status and all the ego and all the money doesn't really mean all that much when you're just alone in your room with your thoughts. I think I'll end it there. I'm gonna go hit the sauna. If I'm gonna be staying up this late, I should probably try and boost up my immune system a little bit. But I don't even know what this was. Is this a fucking vlog? Do I upload this as one thing? Do I upload this as part of a video? I don't fucking know. But if you made it this far and you listened to me ramble at 3 a.m., then I appreciate you. You guys are a big part of the reason why I feel okay, I feel content, I feel happy to struggle through all of this, because I feel as though if I can provide value and help to you guys, then I've done my part, and that's good enough for me. I'll see you guys soon.